While no one person can be credited with creating an entire musical genre, some people deserve more recognition than others. Without Joe Strummer and The Clash, punk and the music world itself would never have become what it is today. Before he became musician and political activist Joe Strummer, he was born John Graham Meller in August of 1952 in Ankara, Turkey. As was the convention at the time, Strummer went to English boarding school at the age of 9, and he and his brother David rarely saw their parents for the next 7 years. His brother would later go on to commit suicide in 1970, which would affect Joe for the rest of his life. One of the first bands to influence Strummer was the Beach Boys, and he later called the band the reason that he became a musician himself. He started playing in his first bands in college, and eventually he fronted a rock and blues band called the 101ers. On April 3, 1976, an unknown band at the time called the Sex Pistols opened for them in a small place called the Nashville Rooms in London. And as soon as Strummer heard them, he knew that he wanted to be involved with their style, and the 101ers were finished. Their debut on July 4, 1976 as The Clash would happen at a pub called the Black Swan, also known as the Mucky Ducky, and their lineup would be Strummer, Mick Jones, Paul Simonon, Terry Chimes, and Keith Levine, and they opened for the Sex Pistols themselves. Their lineup would solidify as Joe, Mick, Paul, and drummer Nicky Topper Headon as the main members while the band was active. The Clash would eventually be billed as, quote, the only band that matters, and they used different elements and styles in their sound, which included reggae, rockabilly, and funk. Their 6 studio albums, beginning with the self-titled The Clash in 1977, would begin as punk, but the band has been described as rock new wave, and they had massively successful songs with Train in Vain, London Calling, Should I Stay or Should I Go, and perhaps their best-known track, Rock the Casbah. While the band was only active from 1976 to 1986, their music was truly original, with London Calling hailed as the best album of the 1980s by Rolling Stone magazine. The Clash would go through multiple member changes, and typical for drunk teenage millionaire bands, there were arrests related to drugs and hotel room damage, and the band started to disintegrate. They were finished by early 1986, and Joe Strummer would go on to solo projects for the rest of his life. Before the Clash were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003, Joe Strummer died from an undiagnosed congenital heart defect at his home in England. His contribution to music cemented his status as a musical legend, and Rolling Stone magazine ranked The Clash at number 28 of their 100 greatest artists of all time.